Boom. All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. We'll let people trickle in here for a couple of minutes while we're getting going. Just a couple of housekeeping items. If you're not on mute already, please go ahead and throw yourself on mute. Logan and I will be doing a majority of the chit chat. We will do some Q&A towards the end, but just to make sure everybody who wants to can focus, would love it if everybody went on mute as we're getting on here. Logan, appreciate you being on here today, man. I know you're a very busy dude. And so making time to just chat DPA with us means a lot in our small little niche of land flippers and investors, man. So this would be a lot of fun here today.
No doubt. There's nobody that has your energy. So I always like participating in anything you're involved in. But frankly, like I've found such a really cool group of people that have come in and done well. And it's creating like this ecosphere of solid operators that all have been out there but never had the same commonality. And no one knows or even cared about any of this stuff until we started talking about it because nobody does it.
Nobody does it.
So it's creating this new thing out of thin air. And as you're part of that, I'm like, I love doing this.
Yeah, man, it's so much fun. It's so much fun. So this is gonna be good, guys. We'll just chit chat here for a second while we're getting kicked off. I would love to know. I know we have a bunch of video off. If you're able to turn your video on, it's always fun seeing your beautiful faces. Carl, what's up? David, what's up? Gene, hello. Yeoman, hello. Lucian, good to see you, stud. Scott, James, Carrie, Daryl, love seeing folks in here. Guys, if you don't know Lucian, by the way, Lucian, will you wave for us real quick? So Lucian is a total, I'm going to keep it PG. He's a bad butt. No, I'm just kidding. This dude's a total savage. Been in the industry a long time, works with Logan and his team. So as we're talking through stuff today, by the end of this, if you're interested in some DPA stuff, Lucian's going to be our best point of contact. We'll drop his info a little bit later in here. I've got it prepped. So Lucian, get ready for your phone to blow up, big dog.
I'm
But
ready.
he's become a good friend of mine, total expert in the industry, great guy to talk to. Guys, if you are here live with us right now, will you just drop where you are coming in from in the Zoom chat? I'd love for this to be interactive today. So where are you tapping in from? Please drop it in the chat. Madeline's in Ohio. Madeline, we're in Ohio. Kaylee is in Columbus. If you don't know Kaylee is my awesome executive assistant and keeps my life together. Henderson, Texas. There we go, Gene. San Antonio, Houston, Colorado Springs, Denver, Nashville. What's up, Logan Mingle? Hey, good to see you, brother. LA, Luton, England. Oh my gosh. Houston, New Orleans, Tacoma. Let's see. Atlanta, Detroit, Atlanta, Zanesville, Ohio, an hour east of Columbus. Do you know where that is, Kaylee? You ever heard of Zanesville?
Yeah, it's really
Okay.
small.
Connecticut. Steve, what's up, Steve? Hopefully Jen's on here with us too. Good to see you, man. Dan Larson, what's up, dude? Frank, good to see you. Calling out of Melbourne. Sweet guys. Well, hey, folks are going to be trickling in. Today, we're really going to get focused on just breaking down distressed property acquisitions. I've got a list of questions here for Logan today. Some from my community. If you're in the inner circle and you're working on sales training, you know we've got a private Slack channel where I answer y'all and talk through calls. We listen to calls, close more deals, all that fun stuff. So if you're in there and you dropped questions, I did see them, and I'm going to do my best to ask here. So we'll do some Q&A at the end, but I've got a good outline to get a bunch of info out of our Mr. Wealth of Knowledge, Logan, today. We're going to be super focused on how him and his team are getting six-figure deals all the friggin' time on basically no marketing spend. The stuff that my team's been doing on this side, we've incorporated so much of this into our business and are loving it because it's so profitable. So it's going to be a fun time. Couple of announcements as we're getting kicked off here. All right, I got two big things. Number one is we do have a couple spots in the inner circle. So if you're looking for some sales training, feel free to holler at me, drop something in the chat. I'll have Jacob on my team give you a holler. And number two is my birthday was this past Tuesday. And so we dropped a little promo for the Land Scaling Summit, September 19th and 20th here in Dallas. Kaylee, drop. Hey, once again, guys, if you are not Hey G, I'm gonna go on mute. There it is. Okay, sweet. Yeah, if you are not me or Logan, please go on mute. Kaylee, thank you for dropping that. Um, use code birthday to get $200 off. I left that code active through the rest of the day. So if you can make it out to the summit, you get $200 off. If you go ahead and sign up September 19th and 20th here in Dallas, we're going to be talking land DPA. Should be a lot of fun. All right. So with that, we're going to be talking six-figure deals with no marketing. Who here wants to make six-figure deals happen with no marketing spend? Drop a yes in the chat if that's you, right? And if it's a no, you can send over your six-figure deals to me and I'll do them for you.
Yeah.
All right, we got a couple of yeses. We got a couple of yeses. Sweet, me too. Let's go. Awesome. This is going to be a lot of fun today. Guys, just loose agenda. Okay, we'll spend the first 30 minutes or so just talking about the overall industry, what's going on, how this stuff works, right? Then we'll break down into a little bit more of specifics on how you can get doing some of these deals, what Logan's doing to help people do some of these deals. And then at the end, we'll open it up for Q&A because Logan's been super generous with his time today. All right. So that's our agenda today. I'd strongly, strongly, strongly encourage you to stay till the end. This is going to be a super value-packed webinar. So, all right, I'm seeing a lot of yeses. Sweet, guys. Let's get some six-figure deals done. What do you say? All right. So, Logan, as we're getting
let me clarify. Six-figure deals are very common, but we have multiple seven-figure nets. I don't want to make people think that's the norm, but I don't want to exclude those either.
Man, yeah, I've not done one of those yet, man, but I'll tell you, it's one of those things where like everybody in here that's a regular land investor, you all know the bread and butter deals are like 15 to 30 grand, right? But you always get one random six-figure pop if you're doing enough volume. I say like once a quarter, you get one of those, right? What I'm hearing from folks in DPA, distressed property acquisition, is those multi six-figure deals and seven-figure deals are like if you're doing enough volume 2 to 3 times a year, you get a good whale like that, right? Probably more often for you and your team, Logan, because you guys are pushing so much volume. But I've heard some pretty cool stories about deals, and I want to hear some of those here today. Logan, man, as we're getting kicked off, the first thing like I really want to hear from you before we even get into your story is really just a piece of like in 2025 who should be doing distressed property acquisition? What avatar? Who is this right for? Like, we've got an audience here of 50 people live right now. More people are going to be trickling in. I'm getting 1 or 2 people joining every 10 seconds, it feels like. So, who should be doing these types of deals in 2025?
Normally, I say the folks that are in land flipping, in wholesaling, in house flipping, the people that are in that have been seeing compressed margins, extreme competition. Buyer pool is just weak right now because of the general environment. Historically, those have been the great people because they already understand the foundations of real estate and they have to realign some things, much like you. They have to realign some stuff, but they can take a lot of their skills and immediately translate it to a new perspective. And they don't have to spend the 10 years figuring out all the traps like we did. They
Totally.
give us a little money, we get them over the hump, and they're running. But shockingly, we have worked so hard for the last 2 years to extract the most meaningful parts of this and leave some of the extreme details and the very complicated stuff out so that we can get people brought up to speed faster and get them profitable. And over the next 5 or 10 years, they can develop all these crazy, unique niche skills if they want. But by doing that, I found people that don't even know anything about real estate actually have been successful. And the most shocking story I'm gonna tell you, and it's 100% true. I even talk about this in my book. Shelly started with me in January when my ninja Shannon, who'd been here for years and years and years, had to move to take care of her family. I was terrified because I relied on Shannon to like run my life and the business. Shelly took over and didn't leave a gap. She picked up where Shannon left off and kept running. But she came in my office about a month ago and said, Logan, I got this guy telling me he'll sell me his property for 90,000. I think it's worth 120. And I'm like, what? You're not an acquisitions dude. Well, what are you doing? She's like, well, I mean, I went to the event and listened to what y'all said. And I Googled a delinquent list and I started following some of the instructions. I got this. And I'm like, oh
Boom.
my God, Shelly's from the social work world. Like she doesn't have a script. She wasn't told all these little details. She just heard stuff around the office and did it. But what's important is she got the right amount of information,
How cool.
the key stuff to get her there. And that deal didn't work. But a couple weeks later, she walked in and said it again. And we purchased a house that on the appraisal district, it's 250 grand. We've got it since appraised and it's worth about 150, 160. Our purchase price is a $62,500. Shelly's probably gonna make an $80,000 lick on that deal. She is
Go
not an
Shelly.
experienced operator. So
That
when
is
guys like you
awesome.
show up and have good experience, dude, I mean, you can talk about how your pipeline is built much more rapidly than Shelly's.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And to your point, we had some good land flipping and good sales experience going into this stuff. So, man, I'll talk about what we've been doing a little bit later. So, again, would encourage you guys to stay as long as you can here today. We're gonna get into some good meat. Okay. So yeah, ideal avatars, people already running real estate businesses. If you understand real estate, if you understand business, if you're not afraid to pick up the phone, make some stuff happen. Can we just touch on like who's a bad fit, man? And I'll tell you, like, just from our experience, I'm seeing folks that are, they get stuck in analysis paralysis if they're just honestly lazy. Like if you're a lazy person and you just don't want to do work, this is a business. This isn't a get rich quick. This isn't like a can you side hustle it? Sure. But like it's a real business, right? So like
Yep.
Logan, who are you seeing that comes in and like, man, I just feel like the only people that aren't successful in this stuff are the people that aren't doing the work. You know what I mean?
You're right. We would normally disqualify people that didn't have a real estate business and earning their living full time in real estate. We would disqualify them and say it's not a match. But we've had a couple people show up and do well. So now we look for personality characteristics after Shelley did a deal and we let a guy who was a pastor in and he didn't have real estate experience, but he begged the heck out of us. And I disclosed like crazy. And he came in and he's getting deals. So now we're looking for a certain personality trait. It's hardworking people. They're determined. They're not afraid of the phone calls. They're really willing to give it all. And it's the people that don't make excuses and everything is their fault and nothing is everybody else's fault. Matt says it right there in the comments: attitude, aptitude, and bandwidth. We use
Yep.
that to hire people, and we now use that for intake filtering.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's good. I agree. Attitude, aptitude, bandwidth. Matt, let's go. Good to see you on here, man. Also, Drew Haney said, looking good. Ajay Logan, Kaylee Peter. Thank you, Mr. Drew Haney. Love you, brother. Drew's a really good friend of mine, like a big brother to me. So that's awesome. Good to see you here, man. But no, man, I agree. I agree. I think I see like the biggest hang up with people is they're not doing the work that it takes to get there. And when they do, I've seen very few people not get deals in this, which is really cool to see. So we'll get into more what that looks like as people are getting going. Do you have a thought?
I was responding to
Oh,
Matt.
okay, cool. Sorry, I saw your mouth open. Sweet. So, guys, overall goal for today as we're getting in is really just to like demystify what's going on in the distressed property acquisition space, the curative title space. I feel like I get 3, 4, 5 texts every single week from different land investors. Ajay, I see you're doing deals here. What are you doing? How's this stuff work? Is this like, should I be doing this? Right. And so I'm like, let's just host a big thing. We'll get the freaking godfather of curative title on here, Mr. Logan Fullmer himself, and we'll just talk shop. So that's what we're doing. Logan, as we're getting going, for people that might not know who you are, which I feel like somebody lives under a rock if they don't know who you are at this point, will you give us like a 3-minute quick and dirty background on how you got started in curative title and really just like what are you guys doing today? What's your business look like? If you want to share any numbers, top line or profits. But guys, if you don't know Logan, this guy's the real deal. So when he drops some numbers on you, you feel small real quick. But please, man, give us that street cred we all know you have.
Well, those are really kind words, Ajay. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Worked really hard to earn them. We've been in business 10 years now. I came from the oil field. Long story short, I inherited a bunch of money early, blew it all, did bad stuff, and basically ran out of money. I was like, crap, I have to go be an adult. So I went to the oil field and kind of started to rebuild who I was as a person and my income. And as money started to stack up, I started to get into real estate because I've always heard that's where, a bunch of millionaires are made. And throughout this process, I got frustrated. Even back then, 10 years ago, I was competing with other investors still, and I stumbled across a couple deals that were just messes. But I was just being very logical, and I was like, "Well, if this is a train wreck, I'm only gonna give you $500, almost like as a joke." And I was like, "Okay," and I'm like, well, "Life just changed right now for life." But that became the premise: find problems, offer low dollars, solve problems, make big dollars. And our business over the last 10 years has taken a lot of different renditions, but it's all been in this core distressed property. We started picking up ranches and commercial real estate. And one of the guys was wholesaling commercial for a while, but our core business is distressed, always has been. I started out in my living room, and my business partner was working as a partner at a large CPA firm. You know, we just were operating out of our separate offices. And today we just hired 2 more people. So there's 23 people in our office. Yeah. Um, we've got the law firm that we've been working with is now moving in across the hallway from us. So we're gonna have 6 lawyers in our office. 2 of those are fully dedicated to us. We're looking at
Oh,
consuming another 1 or 2 of their time. And we've allocated another new hire to help service our coaching group. So people don't have to go search for a good attorney. We say, here he is. He's been trained by us. He will execute for you. But yeah, our inventory right now, I think we've got about 150 give or take properties in inventory. It's not our rent house portfolio.
oh,
That's inventory that we own greater than 0% of, like we might own 1%, but we're solving the issues, bringing them back to market. Yeah, so that's what it looks like today. Typically, our inventory turn time, our goal is 120 days.
yeah.
So technically, that 150 units should be turned by the end of the year, but probably about 10% of that is intentionally really messy, really big, very long game stuff.
Okay.
You can't build a business on that because you go broke.
Definitely, definitely. Can I drill down on that 120-day cash conversion cycle? Because that's a really important piece here, guys. As you're thinking about, again, most of my audience is land investors, land flippers, land wholesalers. When we're talking cash conversion cycle, right? You think about the day a dollar goes out in marketing, when does my money come home? Right. That's what I always say is I want my money to come home. I want it to bring friends and I want it to be as fast as possible. Okay. And so one of the big things I loved about DPA is as we're seeing some sales slowdowns on the land side, we're like, well, sweet, let's add a little faster cash conversion cycle on here. So when we say 120 days, man, when does that begin? Is my question for you. What's the start point for that?
Since our budget is so low for marketing, I'll just say the first time you get a person on the phone, because but marketing budget isn't really much money, and you start making calls, and within the first 20 to 30 calls, if you're okay on the phone, you get your first interested party that you can sign. So what's really important to know about that is early on in our business, we were 12 to 18 months was our typical conversion cycle. And it's even if you have piles of cash, it's really hard to run a business with such a long cycle. So what we started to do is look at it and say, A, we need to get better. B, we need to choose more of the low-hanging fruit. So it's dirty enough, problematic enough to offer low dollars on it, but it's not so messy that it's going to take us years and years to fix.
Right.
We knew at least half our inventory had to be easier layups in this field so that we could move the money. Um, so that's why we focused on that. 70% of the messy deals are just ownership problems. But the kicker is you got to understand how to find them efficiently, and how to deal with people who can't come together to get along. Like if
Right.
someone want to take from this, say, I don't need your training. I'm just going to go find properties with lots of owners and buy them all. I'm like, good luck getting all those idiots to the title company on the same day. That's why we exist. And
Yeah.
that's why you need help.
That's so good, man. That's so good. So, just to drill down to again, anything you're comfortable sharing here, like how much in property do you think you guys will sell this year? Or if you want to share any profit numbers, you're welcome to. But again, I just want people to realize the magnitude of business you guys are
Oh
doing.
God.
Yes,
Well,
just guess.
so first, quick disclosure, I've got multiple businesses with different partners managing them, and you're familiar with that, but other people may not.
Right.
We built this business with Kyle is special and he hired his own team and runs it, and I own a share of his company. Dave, the same, he was great. So we developed business lines in here that are all in distress property, but they all kind of manage a little differently, staff differently, whatnot. But across all of the entities, we've probably got 150, no, I'm sorry, 50 to 18 million in inventory probably. So with margins, typically about 50% is a net margin. So a gross margin will be greater than that. But when you include net margin, like after paying for overhead and all the other sale SG&A expenses, we're winding up at about a 40 to 50% net margin. That'd be like EBITDA, for example.
Right.
So you can do the math what a company like this could earn if we turn our inventory. Let's say on the low end we have 10 million, 15 million inventory. We turn that twice a year, that's 30 million. Cut that in half, and you can look at an EBITDA on a business like this. Now I'll disclose that we've been here for 10 years. My partner's a CPA. We're a pretty sophisticated operation today. But a lot of people that do businesses like this were like me in the first 2 years. I got to the point where I could make $1 million without me and one assistant, like a $40,000 a year assistant. I could net $1 million. I didn't have all the special technical stuff I got today, but that was me burning the phones and working 7 days a week.
Yeah,
So it's very real for a person to make $1 million a year with one or two people on their team and not have to have this massively sophisticated op.
boom,
But
man.
if you want to do it early on, we thought this business was so custom, we couldn't grow it big. We're like, whoa, it's way too custom. We can't get it large. And over time, we solved each bottleneck and hurdle and roadblock. And interestingly enough, we got a big ass business now. It's
Man, it's so interesting, and we'll break this down. One of the questions I've got for you later is talking about different team structures, and what's so cool about your different JV partners is, I mean, you're front row seat into how many different ways people can run the business based on their risk tolerance and skill set. We'll talk through JV partners where people are bringing you and your team deal. So, man, we're gonna open up and unravel a lot of what this stuff looks like, guys. I just want to make sure everyone's got a good baseline before we get too deep in there, right? And so, if you're not running an 8-figure business, listen up, y'all, because Fullmer and the team are, baby. Let's go. So that's awesome. And obviously, you guys have been at this a long time. You probably won't be at an 8-figure business your first year. Very few people are, but heck, I'm not going to set limiting beliefs, guys. If you want to run at this thing, I'm sure there's ways to do that. Let's drill down though, man. So let's talk about, you talked a little bit about how you found curative title, right? Can you tell me, like, what was your epiphany? Even like, walk me through, why is this business better than commercial wholesaling, than flipping houses, than wholesaling, right? Because man, Logan, I know you look at a lot of different business opportunities. You're a real estate guy. You have a bunch of different assets in your portfolio between flex space and industrial and ranches and all the other stuff you guys are picking up, but you're all in on this business, right? So help me understand, like, why is this better than anything else out there that you're seeing? How did you come to see that?
why I like it today. And as I've looked at every other kind of business, it's still at the top of my list is because it's a very efficient use of capital. And it's not rocket science, but it's not as simple as wholesaling. So if a person were to show up, like you said, and willing to work hard and has a baseline of IQ, you can earn more money than anything else I've been able to find. And I own like pieces of liquor companies, food manufacturing, got some tech stuff. Like I'm in a lot of stuff.
You don't even drink, do you, Logan?
No, but they say
That's
don't get out
hilarious,
your own
man.
supply.
Okay. All right. My bad. Quick side tangent. Bring it back.
But I can't find another business that's profitable. And early on, I had limited capital. It's still limited, but it's different limits. Early on, I was buying a lot for $5,000, fixing the problems and selling it for 50 or 80. And you cannot get into a real estate deal these days for 5 or 10 grand. It's very hard. And even if you do a sub two deal, it usually doesn't have any equity because that's the allure of those. But entering deals for as little as $500 or 5,000 or 10,000 is a very efficient use of capital because the typical flipper will do maybe it's a house that sells for 200, 250,000. It's going to cost them 170,000 with equity and debt and remodeling and all that. And they might make 30 to 50 grand on a $250,000 house. We're the opposite. We're buying something for 50 and selling it for 200. So our capital goes so much further and you can be so much more profitable on so much less dollars.
Right.
That was the allure in the beginning. But how I determined that is I was going and buying foreclosures, doing small remodels. And my favorite thing was to buy a foreclosure property and go put a for sale owner by owner sign and sell in the market for more than I paid and basically do a wholesale out of the foreclosure auction. But as I went back to go look at some of these early neighborhoods that I started working in originally, I wanted to go buy some more lots because I sold them and make a lot of money. When I
Right.
went back to the neighborhood, the prices had all gone up and everyone knew. So I couldn't get them cheap, but I started to see property that hadn't transacted that had multiple owners or big tax balances or something. And I thought, these haven't sold, but the others have. And then right around that time, I was selling a lot that was in my portfolio. And when I went to resell it, I went to title and I had only bought one deed. So there were 9 owners and I bought one ninth. And I'd been buying property with title insurance with these $5,000 lots, and it was a hassle. And this one guy was like, I ain't getting title insurance. Come to my house with the money. Otherwise, I won't sell it. And I'm like, fuck it, I'll do it. Well, the reason he didn't want me to do that is to go to title because there were like a bunch of other owners. But I thank God weekly for that event because it caused me to go to a lawyer's office and say, I'll pay you by the hour to help me. And he showed me how to determine the other owners, to purchase them one by one. And then several of them had judgments and liens against them and I had to resolve those. And when I got done, I was all in the thing for like 10 or 15 grand and sold it for 125. So I made over 100 grand on a $125,000 lot. And a few months later, I was doing my annual review. And I remember picking out my best deals. My best deals would come from green wholesalers, like they would undersell it because they didn't know how to value. I'd buy it, put it on MLS, and then a couple of them that had title problems. And I
Okay.
remember thinking, well, why don't I just do more of those? So going into 2018, I specifically focused on that and started hitting home runs.
Wow.
First year, I made $1 million basically by myself.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
incredible, man.
net $1 million.
Net.
But
Yeah.
once that happened, I realized this is it. It's a paperwork play. I can do it from the phone and my desk. And instead of me using remodeling contractors like painters and tile guys, I'm using lawyers and surveyors. So the professional services are legit. They have their shit together,
Yeah.
they're professional. And I'm not chasing bonehead contractors. I'm calling lawyers. Way better people to work with.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. That's so good. I remember hearing you talk about this for the first time, and probably like a lot of you, if you're hearing this for the first time, or maybe the fifth, I think it took me like seven of Logan's podcasts before I texted him and was like, "All right, dude, take my money, right? I'm game, let's go." But my brain just starts racing from a business perspective for three main reasons, right? You've already talked about them, but just to hammer them in for everybody, the first one is that marketing spend, right? We're getting our lists from public data sources. So I might spend 35 bucks if I'm getting it from the county. Sometimes it's free, right? But I'm grabbing that for cheap. Maybe I go pay somebody on fiverr.com 100 bucks to format my list for me, right? But I'm less than 200 bucks. I've got my marketing. We use, our team that does sales, like our marketing in the sense that it's, we're cold calling in-house, right? So I've got American-based sales reps on my team that friggin' rock. Taylor's on my team. I think she's on this webinar. I saw her pop in. Taylor is a beast that basically we brought her in for dispo and TC work in our business when we were just doing land. And as we've pivoted into a lot of distress stuff, she took an interest in starting to call up heirs, and she got her first deal in like a week. And she was like, I like talking to these people and putting deals together. And I was like, let's do more then, right? And man, she's been bringing in deals left and right ever since. Taylor, if you're on here, love working with you. She is awesome. Nobody here try to poach her, or I'll kick your butt. But it shows though, right? We got this low marketing spend, right? You've got high margins on your deals. So like your base hit deals are 40 to 50 grand on the low end, right? My mind is still blown, Logan, how many deals we're doing that I'm underwriting this and we've not sold them yet, but we've got these 120K margins on some of these deals. And I'm like, holy smokes, dude, when we liquidate these things,
They're everywhere.
oh
They're
my
when
gosh.
people drive around and see a flip house, they see 30, 40,000 profit. I'm driving around to 150, $200,000 property, seeing 100K licks.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
but
nuts.
but people don't understand what they do. They don't know. They don't know. The
Right.
moment they see this and are aware of it, now I implore everybody here when you're driving around this next week and when you see one of those crummy houses that needs a remodel, we all see it on our daily travels. Look at that thing and ask yourself, could I buy that for 50 and sell it for 200? Don't ask yourself, could I flip that and make 30? Ask yourself, is that a 100K lick for me?
Right.
Ask yourself that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good, man. It was funny. I was chatting with our good friend Chris Beery, and I'll talk about him here in a second too, because he was a big part in us getting ramped up. But I remember asking Chris, we got deals that we underwrite, and we're still green. Don't get me wrong, man. This is my first year doing this stuff, but when we were like really green, our first 6 weeks, we would start taking ownership in a deal and I'd underwrite it and be like, I think there's 50K in spread. And I didn't quite understand how the legal fees worked yet. I didn't quite understand how taxes played in. I didn't quite understand discounting property, which we'll talk about on this call later. So you guys don't make the same mistakes I did when I started. And I remember asking Chris, dude, how do I stop accidentally doing a 30 grand deal? He was like, only do 100 grand deals and you'll start accidentally doing 70 grand deals. And I was like,
You know
okay.
what? That's a good point. So we have conversations around here all the time.
Yeah.
When a deal, I've had guys come in and be like, dude, that deal is terrible. There was a missing owner and we found them at the end and the family lied and we found an extra lien and all this. And they're like, God, I'm so glad to be done with that. I just got paid from the sale. We made like 40 grand. I remind the guys, dude, remember when a bad deal means you lost 10,000? this is not a bad deal. This is a byproduct of a special thing.
Totally. It's also just a cost of doing business. Like we'll talk more about just like picking up fragmented ownership later. But I remember writing my first couple of checks for these where it's like, oh, Logan, what if you lose money? And I'm like, guys, we're writing a $500 check. I've lost more on surveys. Our mutual friend Chris always says I've had worse days at the casino. Which is just hilarious way to put it, you know. But to that point, so I really want to hammer in, you know, we've got lower marketing spend, bigger margins, and then faster cash conversion cycle because you're picking this stuff up at 20, 30, 40 cents on the dollar, sometimes less. My buddy Kevin Murray, if you're on here, I remember we were talking through deals. I thought I saw your name slip in. But I remember he was getting going on DPA stuff, and I'm texting him about what we're doing, and he picks up a house lickety split quick.
Boom.
I think he's all in for like $4,000 and it's worth like 140, you know? And so it's one of those things where I'm like, man, it's really hard to lose when that's your baseline. He picked it up really fast, right? So
A lot of people think that there's more risk. And what I say is risk is tied to capital. If you don't have much capital in it, you don't have much risk.
exactly.
So if you're really concerned and it might go the wrong direction, offer less. And I remember so many deals we'd get into, not sure it's going to work or not, offer them $500. You'd be shocked how many people will say, okay, and your risk is limited to $500. If you have a shot to make 50 grand, 10 grand, 100 grand, $500 in material doesn't even matter. So you're
No.
limiting your risk by limiting your capital in.
Exactly, exactly. And we'll drill down on risk here more in a little bit. I really just want to make the point that this model just rocks as a business because of those three variables I laid out, right? Bigger margins, less marketing spend, quicker cash conversion cycle. It's like ding, ding, ding. I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing's a winner.
Mhm.
And so I even know chatting with other folks like again, our good friend Chris, man, why don't you tell the story of how like I almost should have asked him to pop on here of just like talk about him coming through the program last year and how quickly he went in as a realtor slash, you know, wholesaler and what he did coming in.
You know, I can't do it while we're talking, but Lucian, would you mind grabbing the YouTube podcast link for Chris's
Oh, such a good
podcast and dump
interview.
it in here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Sweet.
Why I like Chris's story is he started with like anybody, you know, just trying to make their way, and he'd had jobs as a bartender and this and that. And he finally got to the point where him and his wife were able to like pay the bills and support themselves, but there wasn't much left over.
Right.
And his dad was a broker, and he finally said, okay, let's go try to do this. So he was doing, you know, realtor, like fee-based real estate work, helping people buy and sell their homes. And he's driving all over the county. It was a lot of work, but his income started to come up. And he's a creative, interested, curious guy. So he learned about wholesaling and kind of had he was doing some wholesaling and some realtor work. But the market got tougher when interest rates shot up. The investment grade market and the retail market just got tougher to move deals. And I remember him telling me just when I thought I had it all figured out, my income started going down. And I didn't know if I'd lost it, if I was a one hit wonder, or was the market, you know, changing. What do I do? And it was the perfect time because he stumbled across our material and thought, I'll take a run at this. So he's proficient in transactions like most of y'all here. Like, you know how to find the owner of the land, you know how to find the size of the land, you can go to the tax office, you can maneuver yourself through this stuff. But his next step is, I'm just going to go and do what they say. And I remember telling him, he said, who goes to your program and it doesn't work? Who does it not work for? And I said, well, I'm not going to say the people that don't do the work because you bust your ass. So I don't think you're in that category. But there are people that come in and they're so smart, they want to customize. They say, well, I know you said this, but in my experience, if I do this little thing differently,
Oh my
that is more
God.
profitable or smarter or whatever. And I remember telling him, do not do that. I'm not king of the world. I'm not the brightest guy, but I'm going to tell you right now, if you follow these instructions, this works for us. We don't miss the mark when we follow these instructions.
Right.
He came in and blindly followed. Now that he has learned the foundation, he's been able to make his own tweaks as he goes on. But he took the foundation, and Chris, I specifically remember his numbers. There's two things we measure: equity, like you own equity in a company and you
Right.
haven't sold it yet, or profit. You sold the property and put cash in your bank account. And I usually measure people's productivity in our program because our program is between 4 and 5 months long. And when people end the program, they've usually sold and made some profit, but also have equity in company, or equity in property they're going to market with or getting ready to. He ended up with $1.2 million between profit and equity in this time. Now, I
Nuts.
don't know how long it took him to get the balance of his equity to market and cleaned up and sold, but he inked in 4 months 1.2 million.
What a savage, man. Chris is.
And truly, I would say he is on the top end of the performance. There's another guy who also does land, who's done a lot of land coaching. He was my first student. He came through and picked up 800,000 in equity as the very first student in this program 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's the top end. But other people, I don't know, man. Ajay, you may probably start challenging those numbers. What I see from a lot of people is they're ending up with 300,000, 400,000, and they'll make 1 or 200 while they're in the program. The other couple hundred they need to liquidate. But that's a very common number.
Yeah, that's good, man. We just got a wire on Monday, and I think we just crossed 6 figures of realized profit since we've started
Yes.
PA stuff, which is great. And obviously, we've had tons of profits from like land and inventory and land deals we're still doing too. But it's cool to see, hey, we just crossed 6 figures in just the distressed property part here, right? So this is feeling really good in terms of great, we got money to come back in. I will say too, I know Logan, you said it's 120 days on average cash conversion. I think that's a really good expectation to set for most people. Sick brag on myself for a second, guys. I think we were like, gosh, Kaylee, what was it? Maybe 54 days from when we started making calls to when we got that first wire on Florida. I know what was the name of that deal? Opal Tucker. Taylor, if you're on here, I think you remember. I remember doing that deal, and it was like from first phone call to that air to money back in the bank. It was like late to mid February through like sometime in March we had collected money, and it was like, holy smokes, this is sick. And it was $54,000 deal. And I was like, okay, there's something to it, right? We just got our money back on the program, and we've done partnerships with people. So it's not like all that's come back into my bank account, right? But the point just being there's money in this, and we did get it back quick. So if you're doing enough deals, like we had taken partial ownership in probably 4 or 5 deals. I mean, Logan, you know better than me. Some of them always pop quick, right? Like some of them are just easy. They're not all like that. But I found even on the land flipping side, anybody here that does land flipping and wholesaling, I always tell investors when they're scaling up, usually about 1 in 5 of your deals will sell very quickly, right? And the other 4 are more average, right? I think I'm seeing a similar trend over on the DPA side, which makes sense from like an 80-20 perspective, right? Like 80% is going to fit in that average, and you're going to see that kind of a thing. And the other 20% will be an extreme one direction or the other. I'm going to tell myself the story that it'll sell sooner, and the ones that sell later sell later. But man, anyways, I'm going on and on. Chris is just such a cool story because that guy's an absolute savage. I popped by his office the other day because we went out. I met an heir in person for the first time, which was an interesting story, man. This
Hold
guy.
on. Isn't that funny? You've just crossed 100,000 in profit. You have hundreds of thousands and more. And your comment is, I just met the first seller the other day because we were driving around.
It's a good point, man. We probably got ownership in 17 properties, that including some we've already sold. And yeah, I think that was. I mean, I've spoken to some on the phone, obviously, but yeah, I mean, guys, the allure for me as somebody that, traditionally, like the big allure for land, all my land investors on here know, all 75 of you that's on here, is like, we like operating remote. We like, I like my air conditioning. I like my sparkling water in the middle of the day. My wife is awesome, brings me lunch sometimes. Like, I like the flexibility. Guys, I closed a deal in Bangkok 2 months ago. We did like a 3-property wholesale deal where we're selling our first one now, and the other 2 are coming on the market next month. I'm literally 10:30 at night in Bangkok on the phone with this seller where I closed him. Funny story too, Logan, I actually beat Matt Pamphilis out on that deal. I found out later. We were talking about it in your office 2 weeks ago, and we were in San Antonio and found out we were competing for it. And I was like, oh, dude, I beat you because I sent a box of cookies out there, which is just, anyways, super funny. Quick side story. Any of y'all that know my buddy Josh Pierce, he runs this company called Cookie Closers. And that's what we're using on a lot of times that we're building rapport with our heirs. We send them a box of really nice luxury cookies. It's like 40, $50 a box, which sounds like a lot. I just look at it as a marketing expense. And they have helped us close, gosh, Kaylee, how many deals you think? Like 5, 6, 7, 8 deals that we've gotten responses to because of these?
Probably.
Yeah.
And they're delicious. Order them for yourselves, guys.
Yeah, right. We sent everybody on the team their own box, so we knew what we were sending out to these heirs as well. They're like really good luxury cookies, not low calorie for anybody that's cutting. All right, but I send Omaha steak boxes. Okay, Victor, remind me to get on your list. That's awesome. But all right, Logan, I'm off topic, man. Let's bring it back here for a second. So obviously, people from land can crush this stuff. It's a really good opportunity going into the year because you're getting in so cheap. You can afford to discount your prices. That was a point I was trying to make with my buddy Kevin that's on here, where you underwrite for 140, but man, if you're in at $4,000 and you sell at 100, like I'm cool with the 25x every day of my life. You know what I mean? So
Let
if
me
you
tell you
need,
when that matters. When the market started to shift about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and interest rates shot up, all these buyers just froze up. And what happens is I know people are flipping houses. They literally had 20 or 30 house flips in inventory or on the market. They didn't have enough margin to lower their price to a point where it needed to sell. So they're having to come to the table. A big, well-known influencer house flipper out of Phoenix told me he had to come to the table with over $1 million to get all 20 of those properties sold because he was losing $5,000 here, 60 grand here.
wow,
He didn't, when you have 30% margin, there's only so far you can move your price point down. But with us, I ran a report. I don't know, this was in December. I probably need to run it again. But our typical sales price, our average sales price was 194,000. Our average basis was 48,000. So our average gross margin was about 150-ish, and our net margin was about 125.
there you
So
go.
let's just use those numbers. You got a property listed for 199 on the market and it's not selling. You can just continuously lower the price until you hit that place where you find a willing seller and a willing buyer. When that location happens, you're there.
Boom.
If we're in it for 48,000, we just continue to lower the price. And now this was interesting. Our inventory started to move slowly, and I could see cash recovery was slowing down across the companies. So I went to look at our listing and realize our listings and realize how much inventory we had built on the market. The easy answer for us that a house flipper can't do is I just implemented, all right, we lower the price $10,000 a week until all this inventory vanishes. And it slowly started to vanish across the next 30 days as we were
Crazy.
hitting the price that disciplined investors who are out in the market ready, but were being very careful. I had to get low. And there are some of these properties that sold for 120,000, but we were in them for 50. And we thought we were going to sell for 190. Didn't happen, but we still made damn good money
Yeah.
and brought a component of liquidity to our inventory that other people could not. So when the markets are great, it's a great business. It's more important to be good when the markets are bad because I bought a new house during that time. We bought some other businesses during that time, and my personal balance sheet was growing during a time where businesses were being slaughtered. And if you look at it, we were lowering market prices, and my personal balance sheet was growing.
Man, I think I heard you say that on an interview you did. I can't remember who it was with. And I just remember we had this project we were working on the land side where we did, it was pretty unique, guys. I'm going to do a case study on it one of these days. But we found a 160 acres on market in Oklahoma. We made an offer at about 100,000 under ask. I think it was 120 under ask. So we are under contract for 384. Road frontage on two sides, beautiful property for a good subdivide. So we did a lot split, cut it up into 12 different tracks. Okay. And I remember we're about 45 days out from needing to, oh, actually, let me take another step back. The sellers actually gave us permission to subdivide and market child parcels before we bought it. So they gave us 100 days, which in Oklahoma is kind of a gray area. Okay. But we got very explicit permission from them. Like we, again, this was an on market deal. So we had their realtor sign off on it. They knew we were going to put it back on the market with a different realtor. And it was as kosher as it could have been. Brokers were aware, like everybody knew what was happening, gave us permission to do it. Side note, the way we did that is we gave them $5,000 in EMD to be released immediately. So non-refundable, said, hey, no earnest money deposit sitting in an escrow account, released to your bank account tomorrow. Because they said no to us twice, where it was like, hey, we'll do 5K EMD. They said no. We said, okay, we'll do 5K EMD non-refundable. They said no. We said, okay, we'll do 5K EMD non-refundable to be released to you tomorrow. And they were like, fine. And that was over a 30-day period. But here's my point of the story, y'all, is I heard Logan say this on an interview. We have 45 days until we need to close on this thing. We had about 6 lots sold. I remember talking, Taylor, if you're on here, I remember talking with you about this, and it was one of those things where you had already moved a bunch of these. We were doing some in-house, some with this realtor, and we decided let's just cut prices aggressively. Logan was saying this is working on that side.
Yeah.
We got some margin to play with. We underwrote it, thought we were going to make 400,000 bucks top line. We had a JV partner on it that was helping us dispo. We dropped prices from 100K on some of these lots down to 75. So literally dropped it 25% like that. Ended up getting every single property under contract in the next 30 days. We didn't end up double closing on all of them same day, but we did half of it. Only had to bring 100 grand to the closing table, then sold 300K worth of property over the next 30 days, basically. And so we ended up netting about 200K on that deal before our JV split. And it was one of those where I'm like, man, we underwrite for this stuff. And then if you got margin on the deal, just cut the price. It's an asset. It's, I hate to say it, but real estate is somewhat commoditized. It's based on comps. And if you make your stuff cheap enough, people will buy regardless of the market. And this was, I got to tell everybody too, this was between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So this
That's
is
a hard time to sell.
Yep. And we sold everything because we just made it so cheap. So it illuminates the point that the thing about real estate, everybody always says you make your money when you buy, right? So for us to stay competitive in down markets, we got to be able to buy in markets that are cheap enough, in markets regardless of what's happening. Like I was telling Kaylee the other day, we were going through our books, and I think our company is approaching $500,000 yet net year to date. We're not there yet, but we're getting close to there. And I was like, hey, I want you to realize we're in a down market and we're doing this. Just you wait till this market comes back up. We're going to be slaying. But if I can make money in a down market, I feel really good in an up market. And we've done that through good lead gen, good sales process, good properties, good discounts, good negotiations, right? And fast sales, not afraid to discount stuff. So anyways, all the stuff we're talking about here, Logan. But I want to take a turn for a sec because people are being super patient. I promise we'll get to Q&A in a bit. I want to dive into risk. All right. I want to dive... David said, I love you, Ajay, but I want to hear from your guest. My bad, David. Fair enough, man. I'm a talker. All right. I'm also a lover. So Logan, let's talk about risk in this business, right? Because people hear partial ownership, they hear lawsuits, they hear, all this kind of stuff, tenants, evictions, right? Help me understand, why is this business not actually risky from somebody's perspective?
The most important part is you're only limited to the risk is limited to the dollars you have. That's part of, if you're to define risk, you start to have economic considerations. And when you have less and less dollars, you have less and less risk. The other part is your risk profile looks differently than what you might think. Currently, if you buy a flip house and it doesn't happen like you want it to happen, you could lose dollars. But an interesting part about this is your goal is to buy all of the shares of a property, but many times we have to buy, maybe it has 4 owners, you have to buy a quarter share, quarter share, quarter share, then the final share. So you aggregate it. And when you're doing that, let's just say the property's worth 100 grand, so each quarter shares are 25,000. If you're buying that for say 10,000 and it's worth 25, your risk is very hard to inflate or to overvalue because you're buying 25,000 in equity for 10 grand.
Right.
So you are picking up equity. Now, where your risk does come in is, what does it take for you to get to your equity? That's the same risk that the seller has before they offload that to you. So normally the first couple shares, we buy at much lower prices. The sellers who many times can get the highest dollar amount from us are like the last share. We are willing to pay them more because that's the last piece to solve. And we already have our margin laid out because we know how much we paid for 90% of the property, the last guy. When we buy him, we're done. So sometimes we pay people premiums. $100,000 property, 10 shares, the last person's worth 10 grand. I've sometimes paid the last person 20 grand because I've got the margin. I'm going to make 70 grand no matter what. And I bought 90% of the property for 10. I can give this last idiot 20. I don't care what his is worth. I care what my margin looks like.
So, man, let's talk about, because again, I think people are so scared of the risk. What do you do when you have an uncooperative person? And David, I'm seeing your questions in the chat. We'll get there, I promise. Logan, what are you doing to de-risk when people are uncooperative, man? They don't want to work with you. They're telling you to kick rocks, or they're just not responding to the stuff you're sending out. What do you do then?
Well, there's a lot of different things that you can handle, but early on in my career, I was much more aggressive. I would immediately file a lawsuit. And one of the contexts that you'll learn is that a lot of these properties become less important to people and they can't solve their problems. So they start to distance themselves and separate. So they quit paying the taxes, they quit managing the property, they quit mowing the grass. Many times the properties are unlivable when it gets to that point. So they've kind of written it off in their head. Well, when there's a tax liability, the way the laws are written are that other owners can't threaten the other owner's equity. So, for example, me and Ajay own a property together 50-50. I owe 50% of those property taxes. He owes the other 50%. If he doesn't pay his, he is threatening my equity. I could lose my share because a tax foreclosure could happen and I would lose because he didn't pay his. That's against the law, actually. So we don't do this like super frequently, but maybe 1 in 10 we have to send a demand letter or file a lawsuit. Once we go in and start aggregating these ownership shares, if we find people are tricky or sticky or unfriendly, we put them to the back of the list and see if we can get everybody else but them. Then we circle back around and deal with them once we have a clear picture of what we're dealing with. And many times we'll start to let them know that we did pay the real estate taxes. And if they want to continue being a partner with us, they need to reimburse us for their 10% share of the taxes. Otherwise we have a claim against them. And we don't say, I'm going to sue you, I'm a monster.
Right.
But we let them know there is a claim outstanding and we do need to solve this so we're not in bad situations. Sometimes that can be more convincing. Sometimes if it's the very last person, we'll just offer to go to market with them. I
Yep.
don't care to buy your share. I don't even want the property. I want to sell my share.
Yep.
Unless you can buy my 90% for fair value, let's just go to market and I get 90% and you get 10%. And people really love that because they feel like they're getting the most money they can and they're
Right.
not selling to me for a possible discount. That's
Yeah.
an option.
That's great. Oh, keep going.
But we do have to file lawsuits sometimes, and there's two different ways. You can sue them for the taxes they owe on your behalf, and ask the judge for an equitable lien and the right to foreclose on their share. You can do that, or you can also sue for a partition. Judge, we can't get along. Will you force this property to be sold and let me get my share of equity? That's an option. Another one is sometimes they're bad optics, or it's not a super high value property. There's not a lot of dollars there for a lawsuit, and we lose margin on that. Almost every one of these properties has delinquent tax or delinquent mortgage. We just step back and let it be sold. I'll let the sheriff auction the property off, or I'll let the lender's trustee auction it. And then I have access to 90% or whatever share I own of the excess proceeds. So we go to the auction. And if the property sells on the cheap, we'll buy it. And then we get reimbursed through the excess proceeds. But
Ah,
if the property doesn't sell for cheap and it sells for top dollar, which these days auctions are selling, inflated pricing, we just let it sell. And then we call the trustee and say, here are my deeds, here's my title report, give me 90% of the proceeds. And we will realize profit that way.
that's cool, man. Is there a way to speed that up? Like if you've got uncooperative people, can I go to
Yeah,
the county and say, hey, can you guys do the sheriff sale any faster? I'm a part owner.
we do. We actually call the tax law firm, or sometimes it's internal in the county, and say, we're one of the owners. No one's paying this taxes. Why don't you go ahead and foreclose? The quicker you do, the quicker you get it back on the active tax roll. And one of the things that they need to get that foreclosure going is name, an address, an identification of every owner. Because once the lawsuit gets filed, they appoint an ad litem attorney to research all that so that they can get good civil service. We hand it to them on a platter, like the entire package, and say,
Oh,
go ahead and file the lawsuit. You can get everybody served, and this will be fast. So
wow.
once they have that, they'll initiate quicker because it's not so hard.
That's crazy, man. So what's that timeline look like if you were to put that in? I'm asking now because I got two deals in the pipe where I'm like, that would actually be kind of nice right now.
That's a last resort because it
Okay.
can take between 4 months if they're fast and efficient, or it could take a year if they're slow with you supplying everything.
Okay. Cool.
I
Which
don't love that, but like we never buy property that's occupied by an owner who doesn't want to sell. So if the occupant is one of 5 owners and they want to sell, we'll do that. But I'm not buying a property that I got to go throw some grandma out that she owns 1/5. I'm not doing that.
same, I get
But
it.
there are a few times where we have purchased property and we thought it was vacant. Neighbors told us it was vacant. Everybody told us it was vacant. and we'll send a realtor out to put a lockbox and there's somebody living in it. Like that's happened before.
And we had one that was vacant when we started taking ownership.
Yeah.
And then the guy got out of prison, got into the house, and we're about to go change the locks. And the locksmith's like, yo, someone's in here. I'm like, what? This was the guy I went out and met in person, though. So we were able to work it out, thankfully. But, could have been a can of worms. We were also only in it for like, I don't know, 20 grand, which maybe sounds like a lot, but we own 75% of the property.
See, in that case, you've got enough margin left. If that dude was an owner and just showed up out of prison, you can still buy him for a fair share.
Exactly.
Well, or if it's like maybe a relative of the owner who's not an actual owner but a squatter, you can still do a $5,000 cash for keys arrangement. And for a dude that ain't got nowhere to live, 5G's is a lot of money.
Yeah.
You've got budget to make arrangements. So
Exactly.
we try not to go that route unless we're stuck in one of those weird occupied situations where we just find out Granny lives there. I'm like, whoa, all right, I'm not fooling with Granny, but the county's foreclosing anyway. Let me just sit back and let them do their work.
100%, man. That's good. So let's drill down, man. So I've got a unique perspective on the acquisition part of this business because of my sales background, right? That is my my passion. The thing that I love about this is I love the scripting and the call reviews and the KPIs, and like that's the piece that I pride myself in. But I want to be very clear that I know so many people that are not salespeople and even pride themselves in not being salespeople and still have no problem getting deals when they're hopping on the phones, man. So can you just speak to like what level of sales is required to start making these cold calls and getting people on the phone and getting this deal done?
Well, that I'm not a real salesperson is me. That was not, I was always intimidated of sales. But what I found when I first started calling people, I had no script. I had no one to teach me what to say. I went to the basics. I got a little money in my pocket. This property looks like a problem. I'm trying to buy it. How do we make this work? And it looks like you own some, your brother might own some, and maybe your cousin. Well, what's going on? I would literally just start like that. But because I figured out the technical part and I could offer them a solution that literally no one else could offer, that allowed me to close like a mofo. And I
Yeah,
wasn't specifically skilled at salesmanship.
I get it. It's funny. I remember, so this I got a wire on Monday that I mentioned, and that was a deal where I called this lady up, and it was my first ever air, maybe my third air connection. The first time I actually had a good conversation where somebody was interested in working with me. We talked for 40 minutes. She had worked with like 3 other wholesalers. It was a whole thing. And at this point, I got no scripting. I'm just, going on gut. But I just remember her saying, hey, other people have tried this. You can't buy it because I got these family members that are telling da 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 da. And I was like, no, you don't understand. And this is me, guys. I'm like, I've only done land for 5 years at this point. I'm on the phone with my first air, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. We've got full-time genealogists we work with, and our team's been doing this over 10 years. I just leveraged all your experience, Logan, because I was like, I'll just JV with somebody that knows how to do this, right?
You got it.
So I'm going to pretend like I'm part of the team, and we'll just JV a deal with somebody that is doing this. And I'm confident. I had enough confidence to know we could get it completed, right? Anyways, it was a funny story just because I ended up getting blocked 5 different phone numbers and ended up like texting with the husband and closed the deal that way. And it was a crazy, crazy story we don't need to get into right now. But the point being, at that point, I didn't have any scripting. I didn't know what I was saying. I had no conviction on how this stuff worked, but I knew that Logan knew how to do it. And I knew people that Logan had connected me with and knew how to do it. So I was like, if I could just get somebody to say yes at $500 to $1,000 for me to buy their stake and they own at least 15% of this property, I'm confident we can get a deal done if there's margin here, right? So that's what we did. And man, I want to touch on too, like you mentioned earlier, sometimes people think they're too smart, right? Like my favorite expression from Alex Hormozy is imitate before you iterate. I was like, I'm going to do exactly what these guys tell me to do before I change a single thing.
Yeah.
Right? And it worked. So man, let's drill down to, because I feel like people are looking at this and they're like, well, Logan, everybody's jumping into it, man. Is it going to get too competitive? Am I just going to jump in and then there's going to be no deals left? What, like talk to that. You've been doing this 10 years. Speak to the competition. Speak to the, what that looks like.
I had a lot of people ask me that. Oh, actually, early on, the common question they're always asking is, well, wholesaling got very saturated. House flipping got very saturated. what's going to happen here? And like, I almost felt like people were like testing, like, what's going to happen here? Like I'm trying to sell them fucking snake oil or something.
Yeah.
Like, that's part of the reason I've been so transparent with what our business looks like. Like at some of our events, I would show financials to some of our business because it just almost seemed like unrealistic and untrue. But I have a very common sense answer to it, and it's the same common sense answer that satisfied me when I started looking at this full time. I remember thinking, nobody's doing this, so I have no competition. That's the first tier. I had zero competition. I was the only man deciding this. The second thing is I realized how do problems like this happen? People, humans make poor choices. Then people inherit land who don't currently own land, they just inherited it. These aren't intended property owners, they've just been given land by their family. So, like, these are not really good, responsible, caring property owners. So, when people who shouldn't be owning property get property and no one is trying to buy it from them but me, I got a good opportunity. But when I came to this specific question, I asked myself, when will I run out of these deals? When will these deals stop happening? The question to answer that is, when will humans stop making poor choices?
Yeah.
Never. So these deals will continue to materialize and a new one happens every day. But we're so early on in this, and the hurdles are higher than wholesaling. You got to pay attention. It's not a freebie. You don't just show up and win. It's not like that. It does require work. So I think we're early on in this growth phase of this type of business line. I'm the only one who's a true expert at it and teaching it and has been doing it for 10 years. So I think we have an entire career ahead of us, but also we do it in a bunch of other states, not just Texas. So we've got wide open markets very early on in this business line cycle. Um, I don't see how we could physically train enough people to hurt our market and to run out of deals.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And let me tell you this, I make good money coaching, but I already told you what kind of money I make running this business. And the money I make running the business is nowhere near what I make coaching. So I would never threaten my business by some smaller coaching revenue. I
Right.
would never, that'd be stupid. So
I love it, man. Well, let's pivot and start talking about that because I know folks have been on for an hour. So, guys, what we're gonna do is, Logan, if I remember right, you guys have openings for your next cohort, right? Like I know you've got a few spots left for your July cohort of coaching that you guys are doing.
yeah, when we talked originally, we take 30 people a semester. When we talked originally, we had 20 left. I think we have 3 or 4 left right now.
Okay, great. So let's talk about the program. I'm happy to share some of my experience being in it, and then after that, we'll pivot to Q&A. So I've got a few questions queued up, but I just want people to know what you got going on because it has been an hour. So I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Obviously, you and I are going to go for quite a bit longer. I want to make sure we get some questions answered, assuming you've got it. I love that we've got Addison with us, Kaylee. That's super fun. So, Logan, tell us about the program high level. What are y'all doing? What does it look like? Feel free to, like, I'm happy to share about my experience finishing up basically on the other end of it, right? Having just gone through it, but just speak to it for a second, man.
I spent time abstracting what I took years to teach my business partners so that I could only transfer the information in generally a limited amount of time that they needed to get to profit. And I'll let you learn all the intricacies over the next 10 years in your career, but I can get people to profit in 3, 4, maybe 5 months. And that was our hurdle. So the first 4 or 5 weeks is basically a big Zoom like this with me and everybody, and I'm teaching the fundamentals, the foundations, ideologies of the seller, just legal matters, all the things you need to know. Once you get past that, we spend 2 weeks um, helping people pick markets, programs, platforms, and systems. That way, no one can. That way, no one gets stuck there. Then after that, we break everybody down into groups of 10 or 12 people and allocate you with a coach. Those are the business partners of mine that are running the companies, Ryan, Mauricio, and Kyle at this point. And now it becomes deal support and review. And instead of meeting once a week like we do in the beginning, we now meet twice a week because I don't want you to have a seller on the phone and you can't get us for a week. That does not work.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to get information to you quickly so you can complete the negotiation, get the closing to happen. So there's 2 Zooms, 2 hours a week, so you can get good access. And at that point, y'all have to commit to spending 15 to 25 hours a week on the phone or having callers that do that. And if you do that and paid attention in the beginning, you will be bringing problems back every week for us to troubleshoot in our group Zooms. No one's picking up. Uh-oh, we got to check your research. Your research might be bad. We got past the research. Now you're getting people on the phone, but they're hanging up. Uh-oh, your scripting is bad.
Yeah.
We work through all that. And once we get you through that, now it's strategy, offers, how to get the deal sold. We're helping you troubleshoot through that in the last 2 months.
That's great, man. And a lot of people ask me like if they should join, and I'm like, well, like if you have the time commitment, you want to be doing real estate right now. Like I think it's just like one of the best opportunities, if not the best, in front of us, which is why my team's doing so much of it right now. When people are between like, should I just figure this out myself? I'm like, you're welcome to. There's
I,
you know,
I'm
but
going to give you a different answer.
yeah,
You're welcome to. I had somebody tell me that instead of paying for the program, they were going to go figure it out on their own. And I laughed and I said, do you realize me and an extremely high IQ CPA and 4 other guys have done this 40 to 60 hours a week for 10 years? If you think you will get ahead of us, I'm not being cocky or bash or brash or anything, but you would be a fool to think that you're going to make more progress than we did in 10 years. And I'm
right,
only saying that because we've slapped so much man hours and time and care. I did this 7 hours a week, 10, 12 hours a day for 2 years.
right.
The probability, and if it was that easy to learn, wouldn't you think someone else would have figured this out before this band of idiots?
Oh, 100%, man. And honestly, I think so. That's a good perspective. I'm all about compressing timelines, which is why when I hit you up and I said, dude, where do I wire my money? Like, send me wire instructions right now. I'm ready to go. I knew like I just wanted to learn this as fast as possible. And I think about so I've been lucky enough to get to coach with Kyle Westbrook, who guys, if you don't know Kyle, I mean, this guy's a machine. I love him. I sat with him in the office for a half day when I was down in San Antonio a few weeks ago. And you can tell by his eyes, right? I feel like with entrepreneurs, you can tell with the eyes when they're intense and their brains don't turn off, right? So I looked at Kyle and I'm like, he's got the same eyes I do, man. Let's go. And it's been really funny because I'll pop onto the calls and transparently they're super long, man. They're like 2 hours, which is awesome in terms of you get the help. I'm not the perfect student. I don't sit around for the entire call. I pop in, I raise my hand, I get my questions answered, and I pop out. And I'm like, dang, that would have cost me $1,500 with an attorney to get all that answered. And Kyle Westbrook just shot it off to me real quick, processed the problem with me, and we just got it done. He gave me ideas and ways to do the deal that I didn't know were even possible, right? Because there's also the legal case and then there's the business case. And Kyle knows how to do the business. Obviously, your whole team does, right? But man, 4 months to get this stuff off the ground really was great if you can hit the phones in the first month, really. And then it's just deal review, call review. Like let's really get into it. Guys, I want to say like if you are interested in working with Logan and his team, you said you have what 4 spots left.
Yeah.
Lucian on their team is who answers questions on that side. I'm gonna drop his info again in the chat. Lucian's here with us. That's his cell phone number and his email. I've worked with them. I can vouch for the guys. No, it's not the cheapest program in the world, but it is one of the most profitable businesses that I've found, right? Which is why I'm sitting here and saying, man, people are asking me about it. Like I'm happy to just put together a big webinar, ask you questions, and we're still going to do Q&A in a second here, guys. So stay on. Logan, what other questions should we answer? What questions do you guys have about the program before we pivot into DPA as a whole?
You know what? You might ask Matt. Matt Rakowski's on here,
Oh
and he's
yeah.
in the program currently. He might have some stuff to share.
Yeah, Matt, you got anything you want to say about your time? We're in the same cohort, dude. I feel like you and I riff all the time. This guy's a goober. He cracks me up. He said my mic isn't working. Man, way to cop out. No, I'm just kidding. That's great. Is anybody else here in the program actively? I'm trying to see. I don't know if I see anybody in the cohort that I'm in. I'm looking at names right now. Hey, Cody, I didn't see you sneak in. What's up, dude? Good to see you, man. I'm just seeing the sea of faces now. Ben, what's up, dude? Good to see you, Mr. Gallant. Oh, sweet. And we got Tom DeBicky in here. What's up, Tom? Sweet. Got some good friends in here. This is fun. Anyways, all that to say, yeah, it's been awesome. Again, we got our money back, I think, in 54 days or something. Colin's asking, do you have any Canadians taking your course? You have Canadians?
Actually, we do. I can answer this one. We had a couple of folks that are out of Canada. It's a team of three. And they work, I mean, they obviously call into the States. I'm forgetting it's not Texas. They were calling into a different state outside of Texas, but there's a team which I'm happy to use as a referral for someone if they're curious how they navigate that.
Sweet.
You know what? This makes me think of thanks for that, Lucian. This makes me think of a good point. I had folks asking me what states were good for this and should they do it in the state they live because they're familiar with the laws and all that. I had this hit early on in our coaching bit program, and I didn't know how to deal with it. Today I do. So I've done the research across the United States. A little less than half of the United States are alternative to probate states. So for these purposes, I'll separate states into two categories: alternative to probate and probate required. For example, Florida, California, states like that are required probate. Whether the property owner who died had a will or didn't have a will, doesn't matter. You're going in front of a judge to determine heirship and divide assets. It's required probate. I don't like that because of time. When you're in an alternative to probate state like Texas, for example, North Carolina, Tennessee, they allow an affidavit of heirship. Y'all are probably familiar with this from the land business, but an affidavit of heirship vests owners in title without having to go through probate. I really don't care if we go to the judicial system or not. We're comfortable with it, but time is the issue. If you've got to go through probate and it takes months and months and months to file and have hearings and all this stuff, a lot of time. When someone tells me they're going to sell me their 50% share of a $200,000 property for $5,000, I want to buy their share. I want to get the deed and I want to do it by the end of today or tomorrow. Quick. When you contract with folks and have to drag all the way through probate, people change their mind. They stop becoming cooperative. Your cash conversion cycle gets long. So I prefer to do it quickly. So I think it's like 18 states that allow affidavit of heirships in lieu of probate. You want to stick to those states. But how close do you need to be to the state? It doesn't matter. Most of these laws are very similar across the states with very small exceptions. But we started in Bear County, east side of San Antonio. I knew it. I couldn't screw up. Well, we stumbled across a deal in Austin that was the vacant lot downtown was worth $550,000, and I paid 70 grand for it. So we made over 400,000 on that deal. But what was important to me, a proof of concept, is it was the same work we did on a $50,000 lot in San Antonio. The same work, but it was a much bigger return. So I decided to pick some markets that have more valuable property, the big MSAs. B, I realized I can do deals in other counties and it's not really different. When you're buying a $500,000 vacant lot for 70 grand, I don't even care to drive to the lot. I cannot go wrong. There's absolutely no way.
It's hard
So,
to, I mean, it's like, yeah, go ahead.
so we tested that theory and said, why don't we do it in Dallas? Why don't we do it in Houston? We're at the point now where I work from this office. I don't go to property. Once we get a share for a fair price, we just buy it and we'll send a surveyor out. We'll send a realtor out to go take a look, but I don't screw up because we're paying so little. So the question now is, well, what if we do a deal in North Carolina? We did one. What if we do one in Tennessee, Georgia? We did them. We didn't go to those either. So if I can do a deal here in Dallas, that's the same as a different state because a long way and I ain't driving it.
Yeah.
So we're encouraging people to choose markets all across the United States. Like going to Tennessee, for example, Nashville is one of their big hot markets. Stick to the big MSAs. Don't go to these little rural cities because you have big demand and big liquidity.
Right.
You bring property to market. Pick one of the 18 states. Pick a big MSA. Go there. You don't have to complicate it. There's not much more to it than that.
Yeah, we've pretty much only done Dallas County just because I live here. Well, I live in Collin. I'm one north of it, but I was like, it's close. I can go somewhere if I need to. Didn't really need to until I had that one air. And that one was actually a Tarrant County deal, which is the Fort Worth side. So about an hour drive for me to go meet him. But to give you guys some numbers in terms of, I'm looking at my pipeline right now. We have 4 properties that we've collected money on, and that's the about 100K that I told you about. We fully own 4 other houses. We've got all the paperwork collected for 1 more. And then we have partial ownership in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 more on top of that. So we're at about 20 deals. We've got some level of, I have to be super transparent. two of the deals that we've sold, we like collected a piece of, and then they ended up at the closing table. We found out somebody had already collected the rest of the interest, and we made like 3 to 8 grand on those. One was like 3, one was 8. So I don't want to pretend like, I'm like, hey, I've exited 5, I'm at a $250,000 or whatever, right? Now on the properties we own, I'd need to run my numbers again, but we're at the multiple 6, if not 7 figures in pipeline profit at this point. If we just only work the deals we have partial ownership of the rest of the year at this point. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. But that's all just while we've been in the program, and it's been so helpful to get that. So let's do this too, because I want to make sure we answer everybody's questions. Guys, if you are interested in what Logan and his team are doing, they said they have 3 or 4 spots left. Lucian's been kind enough to be on here. He's got his email and phone number posted in. I'm going to post it again so everybody's got it in the chat. Just shoot him a text message right now or an email and just say like, hey, was on Ajay's webinar, interested in DPA. All right. He's made his phone number available to us. Just make it really easy. I will attest as a salesperson, he's not a hard sales guy. They're not going to hard close you. If you're broke and can't afford what they're doing, they are definitely not going to try to make you put it on a credit card like Grant Cardone. No disrespect to Mr. Grant, but they're not trying to pull your money out of you. It's just operators that want to make money doing this stuff. They're here to work with you. That's what we were. I called up Logan and said, dude, I want more money. I see you making it. Let me have some, right? And so it's seriously like one of my favorite things that we've been working on this year, which is why I haven't been shy about sharing with people that we're doing this stuff. Still doing land deals, still hopping on the phones on both sides. But man, like I love what we're seeing in this business. So with that, oh, Lucian, what you got, brother?
I was just gonna throw one thing in, Ajay. I appreciate it, and yes, anyone that has interest in it, someone's already shot me a text. I appreciate that. I'm here to help y'all and answer questions and just explain what we have. But even on top of that, too, maybe the coaching isn't exactly the right fit for you right now. We have a ton of other online resources. We have events we do. We have things to connect with, which Ajay has been to and can attest to. So just feel free to reach out to me. I can answer any and all questions that y'all have and see what the best path forward is.
Sweet. I love it. David, I think you're on a call, but can you hear me? David Scarlow? Because you've been asking questions. I want to make sure if I'm going to answer them, you can hear me. I think he's on another call. That's okay. We'll come back to his question. So I've got a good list of questions here for you, Logan. You still got some time, right?
Yeah.
Sweet, man. The first one, you're going to love it. You've answered this one before, I know. Hey, man, how long should I be doing some research before I finally pick up the phone?
Fast. I don't want to know everything about that property. I don't want to know every single thing at all. I don't really care. What I want to know is how quickly can I ascertain that it's got a title problem, ownership problem, and who the owners are, and then I get on the phone. So what that would look like is literally right now, we pulled up a delinquent tax list and just picked a property that's say 10 grand behind in taxes. I would get the ownership. I would go to the tax account and see if other people are paying the property taxes or have in the past. And then I would see if there's an active tax lawsuit. Then I'll grab the owner's name and put it into Google and ask Logan Fullmer, Bear County obituary, and look for an obituary and children. Then if there's a tax lawsuit, I'll just go look there and it will name all of the children because they have to research and serve them. Outside of that, my last place would be to go to ancestry.com, put Logan Fulmer's name in there and see if any information about his children or heirs or death facts show up. If I'm dead, I'm going to be in one of those places somewhere. And those, I have 4 children. So you'd get those 4 people, dump them in your skip tracing software and call them. It would literally take me 7 or 8 minutes to do that. Now, as you do this as a business and get more process oriented, I like to do it in bundles of 30 properties, 30 quick researches, 30 skip traces. And then I get in my mode, get my sleep, get my coffee, and then get on the phone and start burning through them because you're in the zone. If you do all those processes for one, then start over, it's very inefficient. But I don't know, man, it takes me less than 5 to 8 minutes to get on the phone.
I love it, man. I love it. And you know
here's why. Think about this for a minute. You could spend half a day researching and you figured out what day their parents died and you found their probate and you know all this information. And then when you get on the phone, they're like, I just inherited some money. I'm going to go pay it off and return to our family farm. I'm like, fuck.
Yep.
I got no deal. I spent half a day for no deal.
Yep.
Just do minimal
I've got a
research.
graveyard of ancestry.com trees that
What?
just
What was that, Ben?
I've got a graveyard of ancestry.com trees when I first started this. They're just like,
Right.
why the F did I?
So
Yeah.
Ben and I talked on the phone a few weeks ago. I said to, that was just last week, 2 weeks ago, maybe.
Yeah.
I said to him, I was like, hey, brother, here's what I need you to do is you get on your phone, you set a timer for 15
Yeah.
minutes, and when this goes off, you're not allowed to do any more research. You pick up the
Yeah.
phone, you make a call. So I think to your point, Logan, yeah, when you get good, man, it's 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes, right? But early on, we give a little bit of grace. I think in stats, we learned standard deviation. You give out 2, and 95% of people should have anything done. So yeah, that's good. But yeah, that's awesome, Ben. Good answering there. Let's keep hammering through some questions. Phil said, Ajay, are you joint venturing messy deals? Yeah, man, we're just starting to. So I'm not going to pretend like I have the experience of Logan's team. I'm happy to take a look if it's something we know how to solve. Shoot it over to me. If not, though, I will probably refer you to people more experienced than me, like Logan, his JV partners, or other people that I know. So you're welcome to shoot it over. Yeah, Logan does a lot. And so yeah, shoot it over, but also feel free to shoot it to Logan's team. Just don't shop around is what I would tell you. Pick one and make sure you're integritous about that, so you're not fooling around with us. I'm not going to offer any different terms, as I'll tell you, and I'm not trying to undercut Logan on JVs either. Sweet. So next I've got hey Logan, how do you deal with heirs if there's a minor involved? So if you got somebody that's 18 that owns a piece of a property, what do we do there?
So if the minor owns a large share, I'll usually stay away from it. The reason is even if the minor has a parent who takes care of them, you still generally have to go into the court, and it's a shorter proceeding, but it's called the guardianship of the real estate of a minor. And you have to appoint a person to be able to sign on behalf of this kid. The parent can't just go and sign. They need a court order to allow that because minors are many times taken advantage of. And we have to go in front of the judicial environment. If like in front of a judge, a lot of times the judge might look for appraisals or look at the tax value and ask, why are you giving this kid $1,000 when his share might be worth 50 grand?
Right.
So I stay away from that risk. But if a minor has a very small share, or if I picked up a lot of equity already, I don't care for paying. It doesn't bother me that I pay that minor, 100% of the 10% that's worth, because it doesn't, I don't care. I've already made my equity.
Yeah. So to clarify, if you're going to buy out a minor, you want to be able to offer them pretty
Fair
close to
value.
market value. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
And you need to know that you still have to go into the court and get this done. And if your attorney in the jurisdiction is quick, it'll take 60 days. If they're slow and the lawyer's slow and it's not a fast moving county, it could take 5, 6 months. So just consider that if you can afford to have the capital out that long, is it low risk and you have everything solved? That matters.
That's great. That's great. Sweet. Let's keep moving. Can you talk about org charts, like in terms of what do teams look like? I know you said to get to 7 figures, it was you and an admin. Obviously, now you've got what, 5, 6 JV partners that you own a share of the business and they run that sucker, and every single one looks different. Will you speak to a couple of different structures? Man, actually, before you do that too, I want you to speak to Jordan John's business a little bit, because I listened to y'all's interview. If y'all don't know Jordan, he went through the program the same time as Chris, I think, right? And he's awesome, man. He was one of the guys Lucian connected me with as we were getting going too. Just such a nice guy, super honest though. Like I remember him telling me, he's like, "Hey, dude, this is hard work. If you're not going to work, don't do this." And I was like, and then I got on, I'm like, all right, yeah, it's work, but like, is a little funny. But I think that's just how he is. He's a straight shooter, which I like about him. But let's talk to, before we get into what you see for all the other org charts, what does his overhead look like? What's his org chart look like? And I know it's his business, but anything he's shared publicly in terms of how much equity that guy's walked into that he wouldn't mind you sharing here, man. Let's speak to that and then answer overall org charts you see.
So while he was in our program, he did about 400,000 in equity. Today, I don't know what he's got in pipeline value, but it's probably $1 million or $2 million. We have a lot of JV deals with him, and Jordan came in and said, I want to learn the research. I want to learn the acquisition, but I don't want to have to get all this capital. I don't want to have to learn all of the legal solutions. I don't want to have to deal with selling it on the market. I don't want to do all that. So he actually built an acquisition entity, and it's him and an American-based worker and then a virtual assistant. It's just 3 people. Jordan works the phones, Christina does the research, and the virtual assistant does research and admin stuff. All they do is the acquisition, but they've decided to build the front end of it, and they cut a deal with us. We actually JV all of his deals with him. So we supply the capital, we supply the legal expertise, and once he gets the deal in and contracted, he brings it to us. We solve it together. We deal with selling it. We deal with any other surprises along the way. So he's built an acquisition model, and he basically has no capital at work.
That's nuts.
Only capital he uses is the salaries of his people. But once he did his first deal, he stuffed enough in the bank to cover salaries for the year. So that's over with. He literally just built, and that's what I think you maybe got the idea from him. I don't want to build this entire business, but it can be done in phases. So, like with you, you build the acquisition model, you start earning a lot of money and building this, and now you can say, okay, I like where this is going. I'm going to roll with this. It's so much lower stress. Or, you know what? I'm going to start stockpiling my capital and develop and build the rest of the business if I choose.
Yep, 100%, man. On our first deal, we probably had to put out about 35 grand in cash.
Mhm.
And I remember I'm like, dude, I don't even understand buying fragmented ownership. I'm not whipping up 35 grand worth of wires and checks, right? And so we partnered with Chris Beery, who was an awesome resource for us. And I was like, yeah, dude, you tell me what to say. I'll go call these heirs, get paperwork lined up, whatever you need me to do. We didn't have a penny into the deal. And anything we did, if we paid for a notary on the front end, he'd reimburse us, right? And so I think it's the same JV model y'all run in the sense of like, hey, we take on all the bills. Obviously, you got to run it's lists, right? Whatever it costs you to have a phone system. So your open phone account, your lists, your data. Man, you can run this business on less than 2 grand a month if you just want to JV with people in terms of like your overhead month to month.
So
And you don't have to
if
bring
you're
money.
working out of your home and not having to rent an office and all that,
Right.
you need a good skip tracing tool. You need a computer. You need an internet service and a CRM. Dude, if you want to bootstrap it, $300. Now that doesn't include labor if you're going to hire someone, but you do it for yourself, $300 a month is more than enough to get going.
And you'll be working. Like, I don't want to pretend like this is a, 3 hour a week, 4 hour work week. What's Tim Ferriss's deal, right? It's not that.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to put in the work and you just don't have capital and you need to leverage Logan's team's capital or whoever you want to JV with, that's a really good way of doing this business. So anybody that's like, hey man, I remember I chatted with a guy that signed up for y'all's program and he was like, dude, I've got, 50 grand in the bank, right? And I'm like, okay, hang on. Now, obviously, the program's expensive. Let's go through some numbers. What's your personal overhead? He's like, oh, well, I'm actually a veteran. So I have money from a pension where all my bills are covered. I'm like, okay, so we're pretty low risk. Married kids? Nope, none of it. I'm like, okay, so you got no dependents. And I'm like, cool. So what's your worst case scenario here? I was like, are you actually going to pick up the phones and work at this thing 30 to 50 hours a week? And he was like, 100% without a doubt. I was like, cool, man. Like, I'd say let it rip, right? Everybody's life looks different, right? And so, like, guys, if you're somebody, this is, your last tens of thousands of dollars here, like, please, by all means, like, be smart, right? If you got kids to feed and stuff like that. But if you're already in real estate, you got access to capital, you know how to do deals, you know real estate works, this is such a good add-on to your business or a pivot. Like, a lot of people have pivoted full blown, a lot of people have added on. It really just depends on what you're doing. But anyways, let's talk about other org charts you see, Logan. Let's talk about like what do you see the average business looks like? Because that's awesome if you want to go super extreme low overhead. You can run that model with don't even get a phone system, use your phone, use spreadsheets for CRMs, just do lists, right? You little chat GPT it up, Fiverr it up. You can do that for a couple $100 a month. Fine, right? Be prepared to talk to, 30 people a week or whatever. Let's walk through like what you see on average though, man.
So my first rendition of this business was me and administrative person, and I got very high numbers on that. Ryan, I would call our smallest operation. Ryan has one person named Ben who does acquisitions for him, and then they have a shared administrative person here in the office. So he's just a three-person operation. Ryan, at this point right now, his inventory is worth about $2 million. He spent a little bit less than $1 million to buy it. She's got $1 million in equity in that inventory. I mean, he's got other stuff like a mortgage note portfolio and all that, but this is his current inventory. He probably will cycle through that 1.5 times by the end of the year. I bet this year he makes 1.5-ish million or so. And it's just basically him and Ben. Now, Dave and James. Since last year, he's grown. He's hired 2 more people, but Dave and James did 2 million worth of profit last year, and they did 17 deals. So that averages 1.5 deals a month.
Wow.
Yeah. The average is 1.5 deals a month and about $110,000 net per deal. So for Dave, Dave doesn't want to work 60 hours a week. He doesn't want to die the richest man he possibly can. He's got a nice life. They just had a daughter, him and his wife, and
Nice.
he wants to have a lot of his own spare time. So Dave works 9 to 4. Sometimes he's not here on Fridays, but Dave made 2 million bucks last year doing 17 deals.
Not a bad gig.
No, he picks it now. Full disclosure, Dave's been working with me for like 4, almost 5 years. So he clearly knows what he's doing.
Right.
And he has the ability to choose this is a good deal, this is a bad deal. He picks well. He doesn't fool with anything that's got any risk that he doesn't like, or if the deal's too small, not a chance. Now, on the other side of that spectrum, Kyle has Mauricio, Gus, Loudon, and Mariah, and then plus Kyle. I mean, their inventory, they got
90 properties. Something crazy, right?
Yeah, no, dude, he's like at 130, I think, right now.
Jesus.
Yeah. His inventory is worth this number stands out to me, 14 million, but I have to go back and like double check.
It'll pop out to the TV screen real quick, man. I know it's
Yeah, so he's got a big TV screen that cycles it all, how many properties we've got, the value. But I think his total spend is somewhere around the 4 to 5 million mark, and we probably got 15 million worth of equity, 14 million. And that inventory, he intends to cycle more than once a year.
That's awesome.
So he's on the other end of that spectrum. So when you look at that, like a lot of people have built wholesaling operations, house flipping operations, and I would hear like, I have 6 acquisitions people, a transaction coordinator, me, and a manager. They got like 10, 12 people, and they make 300-400 grand a year just wholesaling the F out of property.
Right.
Kyle's got 14 million worth of inventory and there's 5 people, including him. Like that's a big business.
That's pretty savage, man, when you say it like that. Jeez.
Now he's an outlier. He's built that business bigger than I ever did my own, but there's different ways you can do this. On the other end, you got Ryan and Dave. Then the other end, you got Kyle.
So Logan, let's drill down, man, because I think some questions I got in my community and the Land Closers Academy Inner Circle were around like, what do the roles look like in that org chart? You know, as we're talking about, that's how many heads we have. You know, some people are really big on like you hire a couple closers and a researcher. Some are saying I want my salespeople to do research, right? Like, how do you see kind of the respective roles in this business as it grows?
So someone like us on this call is going to be like a general manager / owner a lot of times.
Right.
We will spend time on the phone. We will hire and train. We'll be very active in the business. That's really hard to get around. Over time, if you put really quality people in there, you know, you can back out of it. Obviously, I'm not in the middle of production anymore, but we found early on that there were 2 big roles. You've got research and acquisitions. And we specifically hired separate for that. But over time, we found that it was a lot like when I started. I would research and I would call. And this doesn't have to be hardcore sales, you know, just like extreme training on sales. If you can get some training, you'll improve. But most of the time, we found that guys on the phone would do their own research and vice versa. So we started to look for a different category of person, less salesmanship and more middle ground. So today, we've got the administrative staff and we have acquisitions people, and then we've got management. But the acquisitions guys now do research and acquisitions. And because they're not extreme hardcore research lovers, but they do it, we will outsource research more to the genealogist and the private investigator. And they'll lean on that a little, but that means we don't have to have a completely separate research role. So we've
Right.
got a lot of generalists now.
Okay. I like that, man. It's so interesting because I feel like in most businesses, as they grow, you typically get more specialized roles. And you guys almost took the opposite approach here where you went specialized and you're like, I think the generalist serves the business a little bit better.
Yeah, if you're needing someone to go build out a big family tree, get the genealogist to do that. You'll do enough research to know you're in the right direction, get them to bang it out and send it to you after lunch. But when you're in the middle of a phone call and they say their cousin died, you can pull up while you're on the phone, pull up ancestry.com and look around and find, oh, wow, their cousin did die, and it itemizes 2 people.
Yep.
You can skip trace those people before your phone call is done and call them instead of sending it to research, you know?
100%. 100%. That's good, man. That's really good to hear. So, guys, if you didn't catch that, It's basically you're going to need help on the administrative side. This is a very administratively heavy business. Kaylee, you rock. Thank you. We've got salespeople that also do the research. And when you get big enough, it can make sense to have some form of a genealogist researcher that goes a lot deeper, right? But that initial research, super easy to do for your salespeople, enough to get on the phones, right? Do some good skip tracing. David's still on a call, it looks like, which is fine. Let's go ahead and chat about list pulling, just because I do want that question answered for everybody else that's been asking about it. Logan, man, can you speak to like, how are we getting our list, right? I'm talking about, hey, it's county, it's this, that, it's cheap, right? Tell me, like, I call up the county, what am I asking for, right?
Over time, doing hundreds of these deals, I started to look at commonalities. And early on, we were looking up lawsuit filings, tax lawsuits, mortgage foreclosure notices. We had all these different places, list stacking with code liens and all this. And I started to find the common thread was tax or mortgage delinquency. So it became easier for us to use that as our initial lead source. So you can call and get a delinquent tax list from your county for a couple $100. Or I don't recommend you do this in the beginning because you need to be a little bit more skilled, but you can also get the tax foreclosure sale or the mortgage foreclosure sale posting, and it's published for free online, either in the land records or some counties post the actual list. 21 days before the sale will happen in our state, other states, it's similar.
Oh, yeah.
You can get that list, but remember, if you're going after something that's going to be sold in 21 days, dude, you better be ready to run fast and you got no time. Like the moment someone agrees, you got to get to work and closing them, researching, like moving. If you're doing it on just a tax delinquency list and a foreclosure sale isn't happening, you've got a little more time. So that's just not as rush. And that's how I started, was a delinquency list, not a foreclosure posting.
Yeah.
But that stuff's free all over the internet, land records, plenty of sites.
David, were you able to catch that? I couldn't tell if you were still in your call or not. Give me a thumbs up if you were. Said, okay, sweet. Good. I was like, I wanted to answer your question, man. It looked like you were taking some calls. You're busy making money, which is cool, man. I get it. I get it. We're all real estate investors taking a big call in the middle of the day. This is good stuff. Hey, Logan, obviously a big piece of this is if I'm doing my own deals in-house, finding an attorney is a really big piece of this. I'll be honest, man. I like called like 15 attorney offices before I finally got that referral. What are you looking for? Like, what type of attorney are you Googling for, calling? What questions are you asking? Like, how do you find somebody you can actually work with on this stuff? Who gets this stuff? Who understands this, man? What do we even do? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, to frame how meaningful that is, I'm going to ask if any of y'all got sick and had to go to the doctor. Let's say you have a problem with your toe. Do you just go to the doctor? Do you go to a brain surgeon? Do you go to what kind of doctor do you go to? Same for lawyers. There are as many damn kinds of lawyers as there are doctors. The problem is if you go to a real estate lawyer, it's even worse. Transactional lawyers, doc prep lawyers, partnership lawyers. There's just a million kinds. You've got to find a real estate attorney that deals in land a lot in these types of transactions, because a transactional real estate lawyer won't know a lot about stripping judgments and liens and aggregating ownership. There's a separate group of like rules and laws that you focus on for that. In our program, we'll plug you with a lawyer that works like that. And if it happens to be in a city or state that we have not worked in before, you can call, get a couple interviews with lawyers, and we'll help talk you through that so that we explain to the lawyer what it is you need. And outside of doing it like that, what we had to do in the early days is just call and work with lawyers. And when they suck, we'd fire them and replace them. And that's a bummer because it makes your project slow. But we've now gotten our interview process down to where we can lay it out there and tell them, if you understand what we're saying and if this makes sense and if you like this work and you're experienced at it, we'll work with you. But if you're not, tell us so we can interview others. And we kind of have a good like talk track down. And once you explain that well what it is you're doing, if that lawyer's not good at it, he'll tell you because he doesn't want to be a fool in 3 months after you hire him.
That's good, man. A good lawyer is worth their weight in gold in this business. Also, just I need fast responses, man. I want an attorney that's going to pick up my phone call when I call or text them. Um, it's so fun.
That's some of the leverage we have because we have the firm that we work with a lot who's been expanding for us. we can make that connection. But if anybody here, even if you're smart and got some money and a good client, they don't know that and they treat you like everybody else. But when you're in our program and we can make that connection to some of the large Texas firms that work with us and we have that relationship, they'll treat you like they treat us. They'll answer your emails, they'll answer your calls, and they'll get to work. Whereas a lot of these small firms, they want your business, but they won't return your calls for weeks. They're terrible at it. Like their businesses suck, and you can't afford to do that.
Totally. Totally. I remember, man, I would call these attorneys. They don't take your messages. They don't pick up. They don't respond to emails. They don't take you
No.
serious. The ones that kind of do are like, you can put down a $500, consultation for our first phone call. I'm like, dude, I don't even know if you do what I like need yet.
Right.
So it's so interesting. But what I've found is as soon as you have that relationship, we took your advice of just always make sure they're paid. We pay that invoice faster than anything else in our lives, man. It's like the moment I get it's funny, we get the bills. I'm like, hey, is this still under our retainer? Right. If not, I'm going to make sure we get that wire out today. Right. So
Right.
like we want to make sure our people are paid quick. So they keep taking my calls, man, because it's an essential part of the business if you're going to do that stuff in house. But gosh, like having a responsive attorney is just worth your weight in gold. It's like having somebody else on your team, honestly. And there's times where I'm like, dude, I don't know. I need legal counsel. The last thing I'll say is like, I feel kind of cool as somebody. I'm still in my 20s, guys. I'm young. And so I feel kind of cool being able to say, I've got an attorney on retainer, It's not something I had said yet in my career. And so it was a fun stepping stone for me. I felt like a big boy. And then I just sent out my demand letter for the first time last week. And it's crazy, man. These guys that act all big and tough over the phones tell you to F off on the phone, tell you to F off on an email. They get a demand letter and boom, it was like, they'll work with us. I was like, wow, that's quick. Let's do some more of these, man. So
What they need is a little incentive, a little motivation. And people talk about, I got a lawyer. Let me ask my lawyer. You can't mess with me. But people are driven by pride and ego so much. And our business isn't about pride and ego. It's about process. It's about profit. These are the steps. And when we can't work it out on our own, the next thing is we'll have the lawyer hand deliver that demand letter to their house, to them, so we know they got it. And it feels like you're being delivered a lawsuit because that's how lawsuits get delivered.
yeah.
And they take it seriously. They read that letterhead and they know it's a lawyer. And in that moment, truth sets in, reality becomes clear, and a large portion of those people who are absolutely unfriendly now become willing to work with you because they're like, oh crap, I'm about to get sued. And that's a awakening experience for people. They have immediately seen Jesus, seen the light, they're ready to behave.
That's so good. Man, I've got one question from my friend Kevin Murray. Kevin, I don't know if you're on here anymore, brother. You might have had to drop, but he was asking about multi-generational affidavits of heirship. Okay, so when you've got multiple generations, can you break down how much of that, you're putting in the affidavit of heirship? Can you just speak to that a little bit?
So I've seen a couple of multi-generational affidavit of heirships in the past, and title companies would tell me, no, and law firms would say, I want one affidavit for each dead person. Well, some of these deals have like 10 dead people. Like it's shocking. And I don't like 10 different affidavit of heirships because there's 10 opportunities to make a mistake, an error, or when the title company is running their title report when it's time for you to go sell it, there's a greater probability that they miss one or something. It's just, plus it takes 10 times the amount of time to search for the abstractor, the title examiner and abstractor, to search and find those 10 affidavit of heirships. And then they have to piece together all this information. So what we started doing is we do one affidavit for all of the dead people for this file. So we'd start and say facts of heirs or affidavit of heirship for, and we put the dead person's name, but then all the other subsequent dead people, we've named them afterwards. So it's clear this is a 10-person affidavit. And we would take the statutory affidavit language, and instead of having all those spaces and gaps and returns, we put it into a small paragraph. So each dead person would have a paragraph, and we'd fill in those blanks with all the statutory requirements. So some of our affidavit heirships are 10 or 15 pages long, but it's a long paragraph for each decedent. And I like that because when a title examiner is searching, they find one affidavit and the title chain is just
Clean.
excruciatingly clear.
Yeah.
But a secret that a lot of people don't realize is it also keeps that examiner out of the land records more than they need to be. The reason I want them to do this affidavit and find it and go is because if there are judgments or liens against some of these other people, I would rather they not find them. And most times these old judgments or liens have to be cleared up, but they don't have any risk if you don't deal with them. So if the examiner misses 3 or 4 of them, nothing happens and you move on. But if they find them, you have to solve the problems. So you find an old judgment from someone 2 generations deep, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Well, when the examiner is searching for every decedent's affidavit of heirship name by name, they're running through all the stuff in the land records and much better probability they find all these other problems. When they find this one document that leads them all the way home, they get out of the land records and quit finding more problems.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, man.
That
Okay.
was a long answer. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's how we do it too. And again, Taylor, I'm looking at you. Shout out because she's been doing most of our affidavit of airships on our team. Kaylee on our team actually created a custom GPT where we get them done a lot faster now too, where we like have we just basically plug in the info and it creates it way quicker than us just plugging it in. So my team rocks. Just subtle flex on everybody. I love my team. So we have a lot of fun doing what we do, and this business has just been so fun for us diving into this year, man. I see people starting to drop off too. I know it's been a long time here. Guys, I don't have any more questions banked up from the community or I'm seeing in the chat. Does anybody else have any other questions you want to drop in the chat while we still have Logan? I'd love to see him now before we break. And then while we're waiting on that, I'm going to drop Lucian's info in here one more time. So there it is, top of mind. Again, anybody, guys, if you're on the fence and just like do it, figure out if it's a fit for you, just shoot the guy a text. Let him know you're interested. Shoot him an email. Lucian's down to earth. He's a cool cat. He's got element and creatine in his office at any given time. Yeah, there we go. I love it. So if you need electrolytes or creatine, you're going to stay dialed. It's great. I was just in their office in San Antonio a few weeks ago, which is so fun. But yeah, just shoot him a text. Let him know, hey, I was on Ajay's webinar. I'm interested in DPA. See if it's a fit. If it's not, your worst case scenario is 20 minutes. If it is, your best case scenario is you make a couple $1,000,000. Okay, so that's best case scenario. You gotta get you about to work, but that's great. Rachel's asking, when does the coaching program start? Lucian already answered July 1st. Oh, snaps, that's soon. You guys you're starting the fourth week?
No, July.
Oh shoot.
July 1. So it's in 2 weeks.
Yeah. But it's the same week as the 4th, right?
Yes. Oh,
Okay.
damn.
My bad.
The 4th is on a Friday. We're probably okay.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. My bad. I'm just how often do you start a cohort?
We do 2 a year. So one in February and one in July. And that runs usually 5 months. Sometimes, depending on schedules and the productivity, we'll cut them at 4. But many times we're running to 5 because I want to make sure that people are getting deep in the lead flow and deep in the deals. And then I'm like, all right, we did our job. But we try to get them at 5 every time.
Man, and James, if you're asking that question, I'm sure it's you also wondering, like, hey, I don't know if I'm going to jump into this one. I might jump into the next one. When's the next one? I would tell you personally, my biggest regret is we didn't jump into this stuff sooner. Like, gosh, I mean, I'm looking at Taylor and Kaylee as I'm thinking, if we had started this stuff back in September, like, man, how many more deals would we be slinging right now? Because so keep in mind that cash conversion cycle is about 120 days. Obviously, we had a little bit of a ramp up period. So next month is probably going to be some of our best cash flow months. We have properties that are, getting ready to start going where I'm like, oh, sweet. I'm starting to look at what I think will be multi-6-figure cash flow months in July, August, September, because we've been working the pipeline the first half of the year. I'm like, shoot, man, my P&L would be way sexier if we had started this in September, So again, it's got to make sense, right? You got to have the time. Ideally, the start capital to get into the program and get some stuff going. But, I might try to learn enough to JV. I don't have the cash right now. Fair enough. Which is also why it's great if you can get in, and running the business can be so cheap if you're doing some JVs, right? But you do have to sling on those phones, which we're not afraid of. Sweet. Logan, man, what else would you want people to know, right? What did I miss today? I really tried to just unravel as much of this business as I could at a high level. Obviously, you can only do so much in 2 hours when we're talking, hey, I need 10 years of experience in 2 hours, right? What else should we be asking? What else should we know as we're getting finished out here?
And I think you've given a lot of really good information. I think the big questions that people ask have really been addressed. We did start a podcast. There's a lot of fun stuff out there to really get some very tactical info from operators. Um, Man, if anybody's curious, the big questions have been asked today. You brought a lot of good stuff up. Also, when folks ask some questions, like real detailed questions, sometimes we just offer to refer them to people that have been in our class in the past and say, why don't you get it from the horse's mouth? And we've got a huge group of people that have been wildly successful and love talking to newcomers, the neophytes. So we'll just plug you with someone that's currently in the program or have been in the past. And that way you don't have to take it from us. Some dude who literally abandoned his whole business model to do this is a much better person to explain it to you than me, who makes money from you
Both
coming
sides.
to
Yeah, totally. Totally. I love it, man. Hey guys, the last thing I'll say is just one last time. I mentioned it at the beginning. We are doing Land Scale and Summit again this year. So I've got a promo code because it was my birthday this week. So code birthday gets you $200 off September 19th and 20th here in Dallas. We'll be talking land and curative title stuff. Should be a lot of fun.
Man.
But as we're getting closed out here, Logan, I just want to thank you for the time, man. It means a lot that you'd come into my community. Just give us 2 hours to tell us about your life, your business, your brain. I obviously am just finishing up going through the program and I'm having so much fun with this business model. My team's having fun with it. I can't tell you how often me and Taylor on this geek out where we're just like, this is fun. It's like, it's weird, but man, I feel like a cowboy out here. Like I'm having a good time, So it's cool stuff, guys. Guys, if you got good value out of this call today, can you just drop like a thank you or like a thanks Logan or something in here? Again, he gave us 2 hours. God knows what his time is worth per hour. I don't even want to calculate it. I did not pay him to be here. He did not pay me to be here. So this is just something we put on because I've gotten so many questions from people in the community, and I just wanted you guys to see what it looks like. Sweet. Looks like tons of people got value out of here. I know I already asked you. Any last words, Logan?
You know what? I'll tell you. I heard this from a social media talking head lately, but I love it. I've been reiterating it all the time, and it rings so true. No one knows what they're doing. Some of us do it anyway. I
Amen.
keep talking about that because I want to encourage everybody. And I even do this to my team, and I remind myself something is new on the horizon. We don't know how to do it. Let's just go figure it out. And we're so incredibly capable of more than we believe, but we can't stop ourselves from trying that.
Yep. So good, man. So good. Ready, fire, aim, right?
That's it.
Sweet.
That's it.
All right. Well, Logan, thank you again, my friend. This was truly awesome. Guys, we did record this. So if you registered for the webinar, we'll be sure you get a replay so you can watch this back. Logan will be sure to get that to your team. Again, last time, guys, if you're interested in working with them, just shoot Lucian a text. Solo commitment. Just shoot him a text. Let him know you're interested. Cool guy, big biceps, creatine in his office. You want to talk to him. Wears cool J's, rocks a rollie. Just messing with you. No, Lucian's awesome. Seriously, he's a fun time. So, guys, just shoot him a message. Glad you all got value out of this. Appreciate you being on. I know it's a big chunk of everybody's days, but let's go out there. Let's make some dials, make some offers, close some deals, y'all. We're here to change lives. Love our families well. Take good care of everybody. All right. Thanks for being on here. Have a great rest of your week. Wish me luck.
Thanks, Ajay. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, you're very welcome. Thanks, everybody.